Hey guys, George at SoundTraxx here, and this week we're going to do a quick workbench tip. Now, I know we've been spending a lot of time at the workbench here, and as you'll see here as we progress, I've got the SD40 for the Rehab My Loco series on the desk here. I'm almost done with part 3 filming, so that'll be coming to the YouTube channel here before too much longer. Over the last few weeks, I've been doing a lot of the support and phone calls and emails with many of you great customers out there and a lot of great fellow model railroaders. But one thing that seems to come up a lot, and I'm not sure how common it is, but there sure seems to be a lot of how do I want to word this in such a way that that people don't realize how important it is to insulate your solder joints when you're making your connections with wires inside your model. And what's happening is if you've got a solder joint that's made and that connection is not insulated with heat shrink tubing or something, then what's happening is when you're stuffing it all inside the shell, then those wires touch things and transmit power where they're not supposed to. So I just want to show you a really quick tutorial on how easy it is to make a solder joint and to add heat shrink tubing. And you always want to take care to make sure to insulate all of your connections, because when it comes to decoder installations, neatness matters. If you've got wires frayed all over the place and you solder it, those frayed wires can touch something. And that's the kind of thing that leads to decoder failures, because if you've got power routing onto the circuit board somewhere it's not supposed to, like say for example we take our function common wire, which is 14 volts, and we touch it to the amplifier, you're going to let the smoke out. It's going to burn up because that amplifier is not rated for 14 volts to handle it. And so we have a voltage regulator inside the decoder to make sure that that amplifier gets the power it needs. But if you've got raw wires running through with power going in it, touching the decoder on all kinds of places on the board where power can be, or where power is not supposed to go, then that's a recipe for disaster. And so I do want to encourage you guys to really use the heat shrink tubing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a quick soldering tip, and we're going to solder a couple of scrap wires here that I've got on the workbench, and just show you how easy it is to insulate and use some heat shrink tubing to protect your joint. So I'm going to reposition the camera here, and I'm going to go ahead and move it over, and then we'll get the overhead camera fired up, and we'll see you in just a second. Okay guys, we're here at the workbench, and so I just wanted to tell you, right now I've just got 2 pieces of wire because I'm going to show you how to make these solder joints successful. And I'm using these tweezers to kind of help hold it in place. We've got our solder over here. We're going to get our flux off the wall. And this is our Chip Quick SMD. You can tell it's very old and worn out. SMD 291 NL. But this is the flux that we use. This is a syringe. As you can tell, I'm about out. The good news is I've got a fresh syringe of it in the drawer right underneath the camera. And then, of course, we have our soldering iron over here, and we're going to be using that. Now, I'm going to move this out of the way because this is our video for the Rehab My Locomotive, and we're almost done. I'm about to put the number boards on, and we're going to show you how to do all that, so be sure to check out that video. So a couple of things we need tool-wise. We've got our wire strippers, and then we, of course, have the soldering iron. And we're going to show you just how to do that. So these are just some scrap wires I've taken off of some TSU 2200 installations I've done. So these are about 28 gauge. So you want to come in here and just kind of pinch that off and strip the end. Now you want to get yourself a good set of wire strippers because these will make your life a lot easier, and you can also be nice and clean when you do your installation. Now we're going to tin the end of this wire. And to do that, we're going to twist the wires. Now, you can kind of see these are a little frayed. Even though I just took the insulation off, you can see how this kind of frays out. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to take these wires and twist them. And you can twist them with your fingers. You can twist the wire while you hold it in your hand. But you can see how much cleaner that wire looks at there at the end. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put a little dab of our flux here on the end, and what this does is this helps the solder flow better into the joint, because we've got, boy, I probably should switch this out. I'm having a hard time getting any out, but the flux helps draw the solder into the joint, but it also cleans the joint. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our soldering iron. I'm going to clean the tip off here on my wet sponge, and you can kind of see I've got my clean tip now. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of this solder here off the end, and we're going to have a little ball of solder on the end. And so when we touch the wire, it comes on here, the flux draws it in, and we got a nice clean joint, just like that. Now that wire is tinned and basically prepped for a quick solder joint. So go ahead and put that in here. We're going to do this again. So we're going to do this on the other wire. We're going to grab our 28 gauge, flex it out, and then again, or trim the end. So now what we're going to do is we're going to twist the wires. And yes, I have a loose piece of wire, but sometimes you can do that, twist it, and then let go, and then untwist it again. So that way, if this is attached to something in the model or a decoder, you're not going to get it pinched or anything. So go ahead and put a little bit of flux here on this end now. There we go. I guess I wasn't pushing hard enough. So there it is. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to clean the end, get some fresh solder on the end, and then we're just going to touch that, and there you go. Now, the advantage to doing it with the wires like this is you don't necessarily need that much wire. Again, neatness counts. So we can take, there's a cutter here on the end of this. You can come in here and just cut that down, because we don't necessarily need that much wire exposed. Because if we were to solder these together with that much wire exposed, again, that's more chance for a short or the wire touching something on the decoder. So I'm going to come over here and we're going to trim this back too. So now you can see I've got two shorter pieces of wire that's been tinned. Sorry, momentary lapse of cerebral activity. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put another little bit of flux here on the end. And the idea is that that's going to help our solder joints. Now, if I'm going wire to wire, I'm going to use the tweezers here, because the tweezers will prevent the wire from getting too hot and possibly burning my hand. And also, depending on where you're at, you can get a little closer. So we put a little bit. Now, because these wires are pre-tinned, we don't need to put a whole lot. And what we'll do is we're just going to line these up next to each other. And then we're going to put our solder on there. And there you go. So now we have a nice, neat, small soldered pair of wires that you can see, and that'll hold. But if we just put this inside the model, it's very likely that metal, exposed metal part of the wire is going to touch something. So what we're going to do is we're going to get some heat shrink tubing. Now this is an assortment of different sizes, different shapes, and so forth, just so I can find the best one. But I'm going to use the small stuff that I have anyway, and this is probably about 1/8 of an inch in diameter. But you can get, we're just out of stock right now on our shrink tubing kit, but you can find these on Amazon, or you can wait and we'll get ours back in stock, or you can check with your retailer and find it. But what we're going to do is we're just going to slide this heat shrink tubing, we're going to slide it over the joint, and you'll notice that now it's completely covered. So when it comes to the joint, you don't see any metal coming out. So there's two ways you can do this. One of the, probably the better way to do this is to grab the barrel of your soldering iron. And what you can do is just kind of hold that over, and the heat of the barrel of the iron will actually shrink the tubing down. You can kind of see it's doing that a little bit. I've talked to some people use heat guns, some people use a lighter, stuff like that. It just depends, but the biggest challenge with the others is because this is a very controlled heat source where I can kind of pinpoint. You don't want to put this on the tip, because the oils and so forth in the heat shrink tubing, the rubberized tubing, can get on there and contaminate your iron tip. So that's why you're using the barrel, because you're typically not soldering way up here. And that's about good right there. And so now you can see we've got a nice clean insulated joint. There's nothing on there that's going to come out. But going back to what I was saying, if you're using something like a lighter or something like that, that's a lot less controlled heat source, because anything that's in the around vicinity could potentially also get heated. So if you're trying to work inside a body shell, let's say, and you do the lighter, you very well could damage your body shell. So you want to be careful when you're doing that. So you always want to find a nice controlled heat source to cause the heat, to allow the heat shrink tubing. But I will say, I mean, look at how nice and neat that is. That's certainly a professional installation right there, and everything's protected. And as you can see, we're perfectly connected right there. So this is just one example. When you're doing things like resistors, for example, I'm going to grab some of these resistors over here. I'm just going to grab a resistor out of here. This is all my 1,000 ohm resistor packages that I use for all my lights. But I'm just going to grab this resistor out of here because I wanted to kind of comment. So when you're soldering to the resistor, you can solder to this, but when you're selecting your heat shrink tubing, if you use that small stuff that I used right there, what can happen is it doesn't really go over the edge very well. And so when you're making your solder joint on these resistors, this is I believe this one's a 1/4 watt resistor. So you want to find something a little bit bigger that will actually go over it and give you something to bite on to protect. Because if we just, whoops, it's a little, there we go. But if we just use the small stuff and come over here, well, yeah, we can probably solder the wire, and most of the time that would probably be okay. But if you have to bend the wire, now that you've got an opportunity now for something to be exposed and potentially can be causing the problem, especially if it's either before the resistor, which is where you've got your raw power coming from. So you always want to be careful when you're doing things like that, because again, proper insulation is going to be a big key, and you can get all kinds of different sizes of heat shrink tubing. So make sure you have some of these in your assortment so that way, again, you can be successful when you're doing your decoder installation. So guys, I hope this has been helpful for you. Again, as I've said before, neatness matters. So if you've got a solder joint that's unprotected, you're cramming wires inside the model, and I know it's easy to do, but please take your time. Not only will you benefit in the end because what is that they always say? An ounce of prevention saves, a pound of trouble later. So take your time and let's neatly put these decoders in and watch what you're doing to make sure that the decoder installation is successful, because ultimately we want you to be successful with your decoder installations, not only because it brings you enjoyment and everything else, but because we go through a lot of testing with our products before it leaves to try to minimize any problems that you have. But if you're attaching a decoder with wires that are unprotected and then cramming them in there, you're likely going to cause some damage. And this isn't necessarily intended for any one person individual or anything like that. This is just a general knowledge and just something we wanted to do to help out. Now, a couple of things that I'll finish off with is, number one, if you go to our YouTube channel and search SoundTraxx Tour, you can see a tour that we did of our new facility. And I say new, we're almost 10 years old in the facility now. But we've been in our building, and there's a nice tour showing you how our decoders are manufactured, including the hand tests that our technicians do. I believe it's for manufacturing day 2021 or 2022. I forget off the top of my head. But if you search SoundTraxx Tour, it should be there. You'll see the distant picture of our building over in the side. But then the other one I want to encourage you to watch is our SoundTraxx Webinar 8. Now, the problem is, as we've talked about here with our demo here on the workbench, not everybody's necessarily trained how to solder. It's another skill that's part of model railroading. And so what we did is we put together the webinar series, which helped get you more familiar with our products overall. but I wanted to direct you specifically to Webinar 8, which is our soldering class. And so there's a lot of great information to make sure that you're going to be successful with your soldering whenever you start doing your decoder installations. And so I do encourage you to go and spend some time, check out that video, watch it, and take it to heart and take note of the supplies that you may need. And if you have any questions on any of this, don't hesitate to give us a call or an email and let us know if you have any thoughts. We're always happy to help. Again, we want you to be successful, because when you're successful and you're happy with your products, then obviously you're going to want to expand and go and buy more. Well, anyway, that's all I've got for you this week. So on the closing, I'm going to say thanks for watching. And you'll notice I'm wearing my 35th anniversary t-shirt. So be sure to go to SoundTraxx.com to see how you can get yours. So guys, that's it. Give us the thumbs up and like this video. And also be sure, if you're not subscribed to our channel, first of all, why not? There's a lot of great information on our channel, including videos like this. Try to help you enjoy your model railroading a little bit more. But more importantly, there's a great archive of videos in the past where we've showed you a lot of cool things that you can do with the decoders, and also things that you can do to make your decoders installation successful, including, did you know that Play-Doh is a tool for your workbench? If you don't, go back and check out some of our SoundTraxx videos and you'll find out why. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.